Now to weigh in, founder of ClimateDepot.com and author of the new book, Green Fraud, Why the Green New Deal is Even Worse Than You Think, Marc Morano. Marc, thank you so much for joining me. So, Marc, I have a lot of questions after listening to that segment. Number one, are we experiencing like a climate crisis right now? Like, I get that it's hot in some places, that there's drought, but isn't that normal? I mean, we're always going to be facing different type of weather patterns, correct?
Yes. I mean, this is absurd. The global average temperature currently is below the 30-year average. So let that sink in. We're actually cooler than average over the past 30 years in the month of May going into June. So actually, anyone claiming that this is some sign of a climate apocalypse is completely absurd. The media is out there, Stephanie, hyping these studies. You know, this was climate change made this much more likely. Well, the Obama physicist Steve Koonin said these kind of attribution studies where they use climate models tuned to whatever they want them to say are the equivalent of having a spiritual advisor claim he helped you win the lottery after you won the lottery. So what they do is they look at an event and they say that's caused by climate change, whether it's anything, a hurricane, flood, tornado, in this case, heat waves. There is no science. This is like seance science where people sit around and act as though these climate models are telling them something. There is nothing. In fact, Nantucket is cooler than average, has been record cold. There's always records broken somewhere on the planet. That's what happens every day. And the idea that the media and the climate activists are trying to do is much the same thing casinos or state lottery does. They try to highlight all the winners. Look, everyone's a winner. And so the impression they want to give you is if you play the lottery or play a slot machine at a casino, you're going to win like all those other people. And they're trying to imply that we're going to have record-breaking heat waves everywhere like all these, like they're pinpointing out across the globe. Yeah. By the way, continental U.S., only 2% of the land surface. And we're not even talking the whole U.S. in a heat wave, just the Pacific Northwest chiefly.
Yeah, they say it like it's just complete fact. They don't go over the numbers. They don't go over the statistics. Yeah. Like, they don't explain to you. They're just like, we're going through a climate crisis right now. And like, yeah, it's been hot. I was in northern Idaho and it was like 100 degrees a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Maybe they're onto something. But it's not true. If you look at the numbers, as you pointed out, like this happens. And so they try to take advantage of any sort of like change in a weather pattern. And they try to convince people that that's fact and that's truth. Now, I want to focus in on Jeff Bezos and like these billionaires that are launching themselves into space. So Jeff Bezos, he's been on record saying that climate change is an existential threat. It's one of the greatest threats that we face in humanity. That being said, now he's getting dinged for his ideas of space exploration. They're saying he shouldn't do it because of, quote, climate change. But Jeff Bezos doesn't seem to have a problem flying his private jet everywhere. He's probably got a few mansions. And his carbon footprint's probably a lot bigger than mine. So we have all these billionaires that virtue signal and tell us how we should live. Yet when they want to spend their stupid amounts of money that they have on like fun projects like going to space, they don't want any criticism for that.
It's true. I'm a little ambivalent on this. You showed CNN attacking it. Frankly, I kind of like to see that because CNN may actually have a partial point here. Bezos and Branson and even Bill Gates, all these other billionaires who go to these events, they're all essentially climate activists. So I think they should be called out on this because you have people like Bill Gates and Bezos praising the COVID lockdowns, which Amazon, record expansion, record profits. Bill Gates' wealth grew during all this. Bill Gates is bidding on the world's largest private jet transport company. At the same time, they're claiming, we have faced a climate emergency, but it's not going to affect them. It's only the masses. The little people will be affected. So on one hand, I think CNN is right to call out that hypocrisy. On the other, it's absurd. If billionaires want to have a space race, let them. It is a huge carbon footprint comparatively. If you're worried about those type of things, I think I saw the stat a few minutes on a regular commercial jet. I mean, a few minutes in a space flight is equal to like worldwide, around the trip worlds on a regular flight. So these are burning up massive amounts of fuel, which exposes these billionaire hypocrisy. And I'm going to say it, CNN may actually have got something partially right here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it's like almost like delicious to watch them attack their own, which usually they're so dishonest that they wouldn't even bring it up. But I guess they didn't really have an angle on it. And they figured, we'll just put in this like climate emergency stuff here. Even if we have to go after Jeff Bezos, Bezos.
Yeah.
And I was talking about Bezos and his private jets and everything else. Again, I don't care if people fly private. That's fine. But then don't lecture to us about climate change and all these other things and how you basically want us to go to electric cars and bikes and maybe just move into a teepee so we can reduce our footprints when you don't want to do that. And there was recently a little like billionaires get together in Sun Valley where they all flew in on their private jets, including Bezos. What was that all about?
That was one of these billionaire summits that they have every year that was out in Utah at whatever that Sun Valley Park with, I think, Robert Redford. It may have been one of his properties. But essentially, these billionaires get together. Bill Gates actually apologized for all of his marriage issues. But they all flew in on these private jets. They all talk about the climate crisis at these events. This is similar to what you might find happening at the World Economic Forum in Davos and all the, all these billionaire summits and Hollywood celebrity and, powerful people, if you will. But what's fascinating is Bill Gates, the aforementioned, is the one that wanted lockdowns extended, but he is not willing to make an ounce of sacrifice in his life. So when these billionaires all get together and come up with some master plan for the world, it just look at their behavior. They're not willing to do anything. Keep in mind, the climate activists that these billionaires are supporting and funding want to actually bring COVID lockdowns to climate lockdowns. And we have multiple new studies out, one from the UK, one from International Agency, calling for restrictions on travel for the masses, for you and I, Stephanie. They don't want us to fly unless it's, quote, morally justifiable. They want to limit car ownership. At the same time, none of these billionaires are going to be impacted by that kind of behavior.
Yeah, and you're not exaggerating. If people think you're exaggerating, they can do a quick Google search. There are officials, government officials in other countries that are suggesting that we should go into lockdown so that we can save the planet. Never mind that people need to feed their kids and we need to live normal lives or anything. They just don't think about that. It's pretty sickening. Really quickly, so I know that this is something that you've been following closely, is Biden's energy policies and what they're doing with fossil fuel and the attack on the oil industry and everything else. But also Russia's keeping a close eye on that. And in fact, actually, Russia seems to be benefiting quite a bit off of Biden's policies so far.
Here's the question, Stephanie, and it's a legitimate question. Is Joe Biden a Russian asset? Is Joe Biden in collusion with Russia? And here's what I mean by that. We have John Kerry claiming and Biden claiming that climate change is the greatest national security threat we face in America. I submit to you the opposite. It's climate policy is the greatest national security threat. We have John Kerry going over to Russia this week, selling out America. We have the meeting with China, selling out America's interest. It's a very simple concept. When Donald Trump was president, pre-COVID, in 2019, America reached energy, not independence, but dominance. For the first time since Harry Truman was president, we had more energy production than consumption. We had more energy exports than imports. We had the world's largest oil and gas producer. Joe Biden comes in and literally starts shutting down America. The pipelines are closed, banning stuff on federal land, going after fracking, the death of 1,000 cuts. What happens? Gas prices go through the roof. We now have the specter of an American president, Joe Biden, begging OPEC to increase production so America can have more energy. We have Russian oil imports nearing record high to America. We have China poised to benefit with all the rare earth mining from all the solar and wind and electric car battery mandates we're about to come in. We are giving away American energy independence, which means one thing. We're going to rely on Middle Eastern oil, Russia, China, OPEC. And what's that mean? More wars. The greatest threat to our national security are these policies.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It's a national security threat. And as you guys pointed out on your website, U.S. oil imports from Russia hit an 11-year high. That's huge.
Yeah.
And so you think of people especially at the gas pump lately, where you could see gas prices for $4 or $5 a gallon. They're like, well, at least Trump's not tweeting mean things anymore, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, what President Trump did, it's just an amazing American renaissance where we were just before 8 months ago when Joe Biden came in. And imagine where we're going to be a year from now. This is their plan. This is the plan to make energy as expensive as Europe. Europe's already been told by their UK power chief, Get used to rolling blackouts. Get used to energy only when it's available. That's America's future. We're seeing it in California. We got glimpses of it in Texas. This is what they want because this will repress economic growth. It represses, which will repress emissions. They've called for decades planned recessions to fight global warming. The degrowth movement, which has been written about even in the mainstream media now. It's become mainstream. Hey, it's great. Less economic growth is good for the planet. The lockdowns proved it. This is part of their plan, is to suppress energy, suppress economic growth. Americans are getting used to a whole new world. And I don't see much opposition on Capitol Hill, unfortunately, at the moment to this whole plan.
There should definitely be more. Well, thank you for all your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it.
Of course. Coming up next, Biden's board